You know, where's the young lady? My email is at least 3 times longer than your, don't even worry about it, right? When I have to tell somebody what my email is, particularly over the phone, I'm extremely ashamed and embarrassed. I was gonna sing a song, but that joke felt more appropriate. So my name is Lamont Jack Pearley, and I was actually gonna sing, bear this in mind, a good friend is hard to find. Don't you mind people grinning in your face. Do y'all know who sang that? I know you know. Son House, Edward James Son House Jr. Looked like my granddad, actually, born around the same time. Interesting story. During the 1960s folk revival, the young college enthusiasts who kind of this is the perfect segue to what we're talking about here. They reimagined what folklore is in the 60s. And during that time, they had what was called there were these folk revivals, and they were getting these older black musicians from the turn of the century to come to college campuses. And they were going around telling people how old they were and giving their bios, if you will. Son House was explaining to them, I wasn't born then, I was born in 1890 something, I think it's 93, I could be wrong. They said, no, you were born in 1902, I'm telling you, because they were telling him, because they knew when he was born. And he's like, no, I'm telling you, I was born at this time. And they wouldn't believe him. And, you know, they meant well, don't get me wrong. So what ends up happening is we have a generation of great musicians, folklorists, and ethnographers who unfortunately took the baton from the earlier generation, and they were telling these voices that were usually unheard where they were from, when they were born, and how they came to be. The problem with that is majority of them had no birth records. The church was their vital records. Outside of that, none of them knew how old they were. How do I know? Because they didn't find, my mother, my uncle, and my aunt found out how old my granddaddy was in 1998, and he cursed them out. Because it turned out he was older than he thought. What does that have to do with the price of tea in Bowling Green, you would ask? What I do is document and, bring or present the proper context of the African American narrative. I do it in several ways. One, it's the African American Folklorist magazine, which is based on what today we consider folklore, some anthropology, cultural anthropology, if you will, to speak academically, but for the laypersons, we just document people's stories and make sure we put the proper stories from the folk groups in there, right? That is distributed from my nonprofit called Jack Dappa Blues Heritage Preservation Foundation. That nonprofit's full responsibility is to raise cultural and ethnic awareness of African American folklore, folk life, traditional art, material art, and the Black experience on America as we know it and as we think we know it. To go back to storytelling, because that's what we're doing here, and the most important thing that we all do, whether we're just in regular casual conversation, or we're up here like this, or we're documentarians over here, musicians somewhere, we all tell stories, right? Well, my story is not simple, but I'm gonna make it really simple. I'm gonna start in 2004 when my daddy and my granddaddy passed, my mother's father and my father. Now, ironically, my mother's family is from Gloucester, Mississippi, and my dad's family, one side is Belrose, the other side is Gonzales. So ultimately, for multiple generations, they was divided by a stream, a river. So they passed. I go back down south. We buried my dad on the Pearley burial ground in Belrose, Louisiana, which is 98% Pearleys. Who would have thought? A lot of plantations. Repass in a shotgun house, and I hear the blues and black spirituals. Now, by this time, I am a washed-up has-been rapper that has no more creative energy to rap anymore. Not because I wasn't good, but I just didn't feel it. So I'm hearing the blues while I'm looking at my family, and I'm in the backwoods of the backwoods because I don't know, well, y'all think this is the South, don't you? So when I used to go down south, my family would be like, okay, we're going to the country. And in my mind, I'm like, we in the country. And they're like, no, young brother, we're going to take you to the country. So I'm in the country, and I'm hearing this music. And I'm looking at my family. So now I go back, and I got questions, but before I can ask, my granddaddy died. Now, he was living in Washington. So, and he was a veteran. So we buried him there and did the whole repast and everything there at the church he was going to. But the same thing happened. This time, instead of all my Louisiana family, all my Mississippi and Chicago and Detroit family. But it's the same thing, the same music, the same kind of concept. So now I gotta go back and talk to my mama. She was there, but the whole ride home, I have 1,000,010 questions. And I find out at that moment that the music that I come from, which is what I started out singing just now, the blues, traveled with my family to these places. So that kind of inspired me to start documenting and look for other people who have the stories, to share the stories that I have. And then my wife walks up to me, because I didn't know what it was called. She walked up to me one day and says, you know that old white guy that likes to go down south and record old black guys singing? I said, Lomax? She said, yeah, that's what you do. That's how I found out what I did. Lo and behold, I find out that Western Kentucky University has the best master's department for folk studies. So during the quarantine, my family and I drove 16 hours, and that's how I get here to Bowling Green with you all great people. I am originally from Crown Heights, Brooklyn. I grew up on Nostrand Avenue, okay? And this is a totally different world, but it's okay, and I like it. And I share that because, again, story is extremely important, which I'm about to wrap up. Brings me back to Innovation Campus, the civic imagination in the MIT, because I'm a resident of the MIT Documentary Lab, which is huge. And what I look to do is not even reimagine, but take these stories that I document and collaborate with great minds of technology so we can make AR, VR repositories. Because one of the biggest issues is a lot of people look at my culture, my tradition, and the history of my people in a nostalgic way. And I know I'm not the only one, but I can look around. Bluegrass, you know what I'm talking about. They look at us in a nostalgic way, an unrealistic way. So my goal is to take these repositories, collaborate, which we do here, and create a realistic documentation that you can experience of the blues and the blues people. Follow us everywhere, because just type in Jack Dappa Blues, and you will find us all over the place, okay? So I don't have any, I wasn't prepared. I just came out of class. I told you I'm a student. But I wanted to come here and speak to all of you, and I love what I hear so far. And just remember, if nothing else, the story is the most important, because the story gives the individual life, and it gives the community, the collective identity, shared and otherwise. I love y'all, and God bless.